3 episodes in, and you finally get to hear what my voice usually sounds like. I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. And I don't want to jinx anything, but I'm fully recovered from the last 2 weeks of having a cold, and my voice is finally back to normal. In fact, I didn't really notice it myself until tonight. I was putting my 4-year-old daughter to bed, and she asked me as I was leaving her room, she said, "Mommy, did you find your voice?" And I was like, "Yeah, baby, I think so." Because she got so used to me losing my voice multiple times throughout the day if I spoke for more than 15 minutes at a time, as you guys heard in episode 2 of the Blind Box podcast. So, welcome back. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'm blown away. I've got a handful of people that have reached out and told me that they listened and they liked it. And I swear my head just floated off into space. I was so over the moon, overjoyed, ecstatic. I figured I'd probably record 20 of these before anybody ever listened to them. And I was fine with that because honestly, I don't have a ton of in real life friends that have the same hobby as me. And so I'm totally okay with just chatting to myself for a few minutes about all this and then putting it out into the world and hoping it finds like minded people. And so I'm just so stoked that it's already found even one other person who enjoys it means the world to me. I've never done anything like this before, and so I had a lot to learn. I think I came up with the idea on a Wednesday, and by Thursday, I was signing up for a new Gmail and Googling how to record a podcast and whipping out my voice notes on my iPhone because that's as high tech as this currently is and probably ever will be because I'm not really one to like invest in technology for what's gonna probably just be a hobby. A little behind the scenes, I recorded most of the second episode just pacing around the kitchen while I waited for water to boil. I was in the middle of making dinner. So I have this like frantic energy for the first half that's just because I just finished work. I ran to the kitchen to start cooking dinner before my kids come home from daycare. And I knew I had like a good 15 to 20 minutes of solo time. And I had so much excitement about starting this and wanted to just put all my words into my voice memos. And so right now I'm just sitting down on my couch in my living room, talking into my phone, my voice notes again. But I love the idea of you out there in the world driving or doing work around the house, maybe doing a craft and listening to this because it makes me feel like we're kind of hanging out, separately but together. And so thank you so much again for listening. Today on the pod, we're going to do a brief little dip into the new releases as a follow up from episode 2. We'll then take out our pencils, everybody, because we're going to business school. We're going to do the Pop Mart Economy 101, which I think is fascinating, and I hope you find it interesting as well. And then I have a brief little shout out. Before we dive into the financial success and economics behind Pop Mart, I want to follow up on last episode. We talked a lot about the mysterious disappearance of plush pendants launching in the United States market. We discussed some of the theories that are floating around out there. At the time, I wasn't able to find any official Pop Mart confirmation or even acknowledgement about the disappearances or the delay of these items in our market. But I have now found an article. It's an exclusive article published by the New York Post. Ryan King wrote about this crackdown from the Department of Homeland Security here in the United States. The opening of this article says, "The Department of Homeland Security is coming under pressure to sequester shipments of Labubu dolls coming into the U.S. due to forced labor concerns." Then it talks about the issue with the forced labor cotton found in some of the clothing of these plush pendants. But the part that I want to point out is this line from his article. "We have stopped shipping cotton products into the U.S., which were a tiny percentage of our SKUs," a Pop Mart spokesperson told the Post. We are conducting a thorough investigation into our supply chain and working on strengthening our supplier compliance program. What that to me means is that either due to a combination of external pressure and internal investigation, my guess is that Pop Mart's just halting plush pendants, period. I mean, maybe not all of these plush pendants use cotton in them, but the pressure is going to be on Pop Mart to prove that. The pressure is going to be on Pop Mart to prove that the concern with the, slave labor cotton has been eliminated and that they've investigated and resolved these issues. That process could take a long time. Obviously, now they have to not only investigate all of their manufacturers and suppliers, but they now have to also coordinate with a government agency that moves at its own speed and hopefully slowly to make sure nothing's violating the law. I feel like it's possible that not every single plush pendant has this issue because so many of the plush pendants are polyester synthetic fibers. But the risk to Pop Mart is so great because the US could just halt every single one of Pop Mart's products from being sold here. In order to avoid that, I think perhaps Pop Mart's just stop them all until we get this resolved. So I think that I feel pretty comfortable saying we have an answer now. It's not a very well communicated answer, and it still has some gaps and questions open. But until we hear more, I'm just going to go ahead and call it. I think this is our answer that we have been looking for. Also, to follow up on last week's episode, we have now seen that those adorable Molly plush pendant bugs are not going to be sold here this week. It's very sad, and I feel pretty confident, especially now knowing how important the Molly IP is to Pop Mart. I feel very confident that the US market will get those as soon as we possibly can, but I don't know how soon is. It's interesting to think it could be quite some time before we get any plush items here as US consumers. And I'm curious, does this change any of your consumption habits as a Pop Mart collector? Obviously, it's a little more difficult to get these items. That won't stop a lot of people but the reason behind it might be why Pop Mart isn't so communicative about it, because maybe they don't want you to have an ethical dilemma with purchasing their products, Like it's almost like the proof is in the pudding that this is the reason, in the fact that Pop Mart's not talking about it, because you might now question whether you should be purchasing these or going out of your way to get them from a third-party source if it has the potential of being made by people against their will. What do you think? In other Pop Mart new release news, the only notable series launching this week on Thursday, June 18th, is the Kubo Love Still series. One thing that's interesting about this series is that it's another example of the price of Pop Mart series lowering just ever so slightly. We saw the 1001 Moons series, Wind's Intention, come in at that price, and now the Kubo Love Still series is $18.99 each. Pop Mart describes the Kubo Love Still series as exploring the unspoken subtle moments of affection. There's themes of heartbeats, words left unsaid, the quiet chaos of wanting to get closer but holding back. The Instagram caption for this series says, "Unspoken moments, hidden heartbeats, and maybe in a single glance, someone will understand the softness you've been carrying all along." That is adorable. That's so cute. I think the figures are also really nice. I want to talk about my favorite ones. How about I just do my top 3? I like that. So my favorite one in the series is probably called To You. It shows Kubo holding a fountain pen that has a beautiful flower winding around it, blooming, and he's got glasses on. He's kind of looking off to the side. He looks so thoughtful and introspective. He looks like he's about to pour his heart out to the person who holds his affection. Love how serious he is and sincere. I think that it's hard to choose between him and Butterflies in My Stomach as my favorite one. Butterflies in My Stomach really stood out because he has like cotton candy hair, pink eyes, and he's holding up a x-ray the same size as his body with a picture of a pink and blue butterfly right where his heart would be. The website says that the x-ray film he's holding shows a subtle glow under ultraviolet light. I think that's a really cool detail. The colors on this figure are so pretty. The other one I think is really fun is called Early Summer. It shows like a blonde-haired, green-eyed Kubo relaxing. It looks like he's having a margarita, drinking from a heart-shaped green straw. I think he's offering it to me, but a little bit unsure if I'm going to accept it because he's got his serious eyebrows furrowed right in the middle while he's drinking this cute margarita with a heart-shaped straw. So I think that one's really fun too. If I had a bar area and I collected Kubo, I would get this one and put him right there by my margarita supplies. What do you think? Have you seen this series? And how do you feel about the Kubo IP in general? There's some other things coming this week. One is a Mega Space Molly 400% based on the Game of Thrones. It's cool. I feel like, man, Game of Thrones feels like it was a lifetime ago, though. But I know that some people will really like that. The Baby Molly, Baby Tabby pulling a prank figure. I think it's a blister pack. It's a fun little toy. You put your hand in, touch the tongue, and it clamps down on you like a little mouse trap. So that's really cute. The Inuyasha Journey of Sengoku series figures. If you are interested in those, I'm sure you could find a lot of great creator content out there on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram. Did you notice, though, the new ring style on the Molly Buggy Rome series? I'm really excited about it. It's a flat-edged ring with a built-in area for the plush pendant loop so that you don't have to worry anymore about your plush pendant slipping off of the rings while you are carrying it around. I think that's awesome. I think it's a great idea. The only downside for the average person is that sometimes we kind of take our rings off and we might put multiple pendants on one ring. And in this case, I don't think there's a way for you to remove the ring from the pendant without cutting into the tag. I could be wrong. I obviously don't have one in my hands to really examine, but it looks like the tag is sewn into the top of Molly's head on both sides and then goes through the hole in the ring. So that's interesting. I still think overall it's going to be a better experience for people who love to carry these around on their bag. The ring itself looks really nice. I love that it's a custom piece of hardware that Pop Mart obviously had developed with their branding on it. I think it's an improvement in terms of safety as well. I have two small kids, and when I give them plush pendants, which I do a lot, I always take the rings off, or I try to remember to take the rings off before I hand them to them, because my youngest is 2, and some of the times he'll still put the rings in his mouth, which is obviously scary, a nightmare to imagine him doing that unsupervised. So just to be safe, I'll usually just take the ring off, slip it in my pocket, and then hand it to him. But of course, I might lose the ring because who knows if I'll remember to take it out before I put my clothes through the washing machine, or it might just get put somewhere misplaced without me thinking about it. So for safety reasons, I really appreciate the new design. I think that alone would outweigh any potential downsides of not being able to swap your rings out or to easily take it off for display purposes. Okay, business nerds, this one's for you. Let's talk about Pop Mart as a company and the whole economy behind Pop Mart. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the founder, Wang Ning. Mr. Ning, or Wang as his friends probably call him, graduated from Zhengzhou University in 2009. He studied advertising there, and he worked for 1 whole year at another company before starting Pop Mart. He worked at a digital media company that owns a Twitter-like app called Weibo, but he wanted to start his own business. And after a trip to Hong Kong, where he was inspired by a store called Log On, the Log On store is like a boutique lifestyle and gift shop that sells a variety of product categories. They have toys, cosmetics, stationery. He liked the store so much that he wanted to build one back in Beijing. So Wang and his friends opened the first Pop Mart store in 2010 in Beijing. Similar to Log On, Pop Mart carried a variety of items for its first few years of existence. In 2014, they decided to focus exclusively on toys, which was its biggest success. Now, we're in 2010. Pop Mart's basically a trendy department store. And guess who they carry? They carry Sunny Angel. The information out there in these articles that say that Pop Mart realized Sunny Angels accounted for anywhere between a third to half of its revenue in 2015. That's a big chunk of revenue being driven by one single product line. I think it's so interesting. I had no idea that Pop Mart sold Sunny Angels, but it makes sense. Our sweet little Sunny Angel baby that barely wears clothes inspired this whole thing? Yes, that tracks. But in 2015, the owners of Sunny Angel decided to cease their business with Pop Mart, which when it's driving up to 50% of your business, that's crisis. This helped the company realize the importance of producing their own proprietary IPs. So in early 2016, the founder went to the social media platform that he worked at before, Weibo, and he posted for help, asking fans about their favorite IP characters. A lot of people mentioned an iconic toddler with bright blue eyes, blonde hair, and a signature pout. A character lovingly named Molly by her artist, Kenny Wang. Kenny lived in Hong Kong, and so Wang flew there and convinced him to come on board. Molly had a small core group of fans, but they were passionate. And in July 2016, the first Pop Mart Molly collection released, and it was the Molly Zodiac series. Their collaboration was a huge success, and it's hard to find the revenue figures from this time frame because it was a private company. They had not yet filed to go public in the Chinese stock market, but by some accounts, Pop Mart's revenue doubled between 2015 and 2016. In 2017, their sales reached $22 million, and then just 1 year later, $73 million. That is huge, wild growth. Molly was such a hit, and in order to avoid anything like the loss of Sunny Angels happening at Pop Mart, Wang Ning offered Kenny Wang 2% equity in the business. And when your business becomes eventually worth billions of dollars with a B, 2% is pretty nice little slice. Just some math here. 2% of 1 billion is $20 million. Is $1 billion an exaggeration? Oh no, dear listener, it is a conservative amount because in 2024, Pop Mart's revenue was almost $2 billion. And 1 year later, it was almost $5.5 billion. So $1 billion of revenue, that's more of like a quarter for Pop Mart. These numbers just astound me, honestly. Like, it's mind-boggling the amount of money that Pop Mart makes. Now, I know what you're wondering. Maybe. I think you're asking yourself, but when did Labubu come into the picture? Was it always part of the Pop Mart IP? And the answer is not until 2019, actually. So not until pretty recently did Pop Mart partner with the artist of Labubu, who is a Hong Kong-based artist named Casing Lung. In 2015, Casing Lung published a series of 3 books based on Nordic mythology, had magical creatures living inside of it called the monsters. And of course, one of those characters was Labubu. There's a lot we could talk about here, but I think some of us know the background of this story, and that's kind of when, for the US consumer, The average US consumer found out about Pop Mart, so we probably have already heard the background of Labubu and the monsters. So I won't go into all of that detail. If you guys want, we can talk about Labubu and do more deep dives on IPs in future episodes of this pod. But as they say, the rest is history. So they partnered on their first Labubu blind box figurines in 2019, and the plush pendants didn't come until 2023. 1 year later, sales skyrocketed because of high-profile celebrity endorsements. Everybody recalls Lisa from Blackpink being pivotal in building the craze and global frenzy for these Labubu plush pendants. In 2018, before any Labubu series, Pop Mart's revenue was a modest $75 million, but by 2025, they had made $5.5 billion. Billion dollars of revenue. That is let's calculate the change. Let's see, carry the 1, divide and multiply. Okay, that's 7,233% total growth. Or, because it's a 7-year period, a compounded annual growth rate of 105.85%. Those numbers are absolutely wild. So let's move on. Let's talk about some other aspects of the business, because gosh, it's just hard to wrap our minds around how much money that is. I want to talk a little bit about the IP portfolio of Pop Mart. I want to talk about the sales side of them, pre and post Labubu. So pre-Labubu, Molly was by far the queen. Molly represented the majority of IP sales. They also had Pucky in 2018. They had one that I believe has been discontinued, Satyr Rory. It's a character that's depicted as like a very cute mythological half goat. Satyr Rory was never officially discontinued by a public statement, but you can tell she's been slowly phased out over time. I see her in Pop Beans, but I haven't seen any Satyr Rory series around to buy. Demu and Labubu came around in 2019. And then in 2020, we got Skull Panda. It's interesting, if you look at a breakout of the sales revenue of these different IP series over time, which I'll post on Substack so you can see it, you can see that Molly and Demu are pretty much neck and neck for most of every year until 2024 and the plush pendant Labubu series. I know these numbers are kind of hard to follow in audio form, so go to our Substack Blind Box Pod and you'll see the chart that I am referencing, which is from the website of the China Europe International Business School. It's so interesting seeing the celebrity endorsement effect in chart form, because 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023, the Monsters IPs series sales are kind of steady. They're increasing kind of steadily over time, but then the difference between 2023 and 2024 is wild. In 2023, the Monsters series sales were right over 365 million. In 2024, they multiplied tenfold to 3 billion. And the numbers on this chart are all in the renminbi currency. You can see, though, that Labubu's popularity has an effect on the sales of all of Pop Mart's other IPs. Sales of Molly doubled. Sales of Skull Panda went up 30%. Demu went up about 20%. A new notable entry between 2023 and 2024. We've got Crybaby now on the scene, and she's got really great sales in 2024. She's surpassed the sales of Demu, even though she launched just 1 year before. I do want to now go through their current IP rankings and talk about what we know in terms of this year's sales popularity. Now that the Monsters craze has kind of died down, how are things now? At the end of March of this year, 2026, Pop Mart published its 2025 earnings report. And so all of the information that I'll talk about in this segment of the podcast is based on their 2025 annual earnings. You can read this annual report on the Pop Mart website, and I'll post a link to it in our Substack show notes. It's long. I mean, it's an official investor document, highly regulated. It's 370 pages long. So I don't recommend it for light reading, but I think it's interesting reading like the opening statements and hearing Pop Mart talk about themselves as a company, their goals, their IPs, their strategy. I like hearing that information as a business nerd. There are 6 key IPs in the Pop Mart universe in terms of earnings, and I'm going to pause for just a moment to let you think about what those IPs are. Can you guess them? Let's talk about it. So, number 1 still on top of the ladder is the Monsters series. Our little Labubu still captured a dominant 38% of total sales for Pop Mart. It's still clearly by far and away Pop Mart's number 1 IP, even though number 2, who do you think it is? Do you think it's Skull Panda? You would be right. So Skull Panda is number 2 now at 3.4 billion yuan in revenue. It's a huge amount of growth from the year before. The third IP surprised me. I thought perhaps it would be Molly because we saw her be such a strong IP in the early years. But number 3 is actually Crybaby. I did not expect that. I love Crybaby. In the number 4 slot is our beautiful Molly, just under Crybaby, almost tied. She represented 2.9 billion yuan for Pop Mart. Then followed by Demu. Interestingly enough, Demu had a massive surge in 2025. He had a 205% year-over-year surge in his revenue specifically. So that puts the top 5 at Labubu, Skull Panda, Crybaby, Molly, and Demu. There's 2 honorable mentions in the top IPs for Pop Mart. In the 6th place, we've got our stellar little Twinkle Twinkle, which is actually incredible performance because he debuted in late 2024. So in just 1 year, Twinkle Twinkle shot into the top 5. That's pretty surprising. Good on you, Twinkle Twinkle. Great job, Twinkle Twinkle. You're doing great, honey. Okay, so aside from those top IP, what about all the collaborations that they do? Well, collaborations certainly are important to Pop Mart. You know, one of the benefits of collaborating with another company and its own IP is that you expand your market to new people who've never heard of you before. But these licensed IPs only drive somewhere around 15 to 20% of Pop Mart's revenue, which is not nothing, but from the Pop Mart perspective, it's important for them to continue doing that. I also wanted to look at competitors to Pop Mart. But it's hard to find like a true apples to apples competitor to Pop Mart because if it depends on how we're looking at things. If we're looking at things from the perspective of a store they go to get blind boxes, then you may be tempted to compare Pop Mart to Miniso as the primary competitor in the space. And it's kind of like comparing an orchard of trees to a little baby seed because Pop Mart grows and develops its own in-house IP, which attribute to a huge monster share of profit margin compared to Miniso, which has a giant amount of in-store retail presence, far more actual physical stores than Pop Mart has, but the majority of their products are not owned and manufactured by Miniso brands. So they're getting a much smaller profit margin on the sales of those items. Let's break it down a little bit more. Pop Mart's direct rival in the retail space is actually a subsidiary of Miniso, Top Toy. Top Toy produces blind boxes. I'm sure we have Top Toy blind boxes in our collection if you're listening to this podcast. They are owned and backed and sold in Miniso Group stores. Miniso Group is the giant corporation behind Top Toy. And because they are owned by Miniso now, they have a great retail presence. But sales of Top Toy blind boxes doesn't really compare to the sales figures of a Pop Mart blind box. Let me give you some examples. In 2025, Pop Mart's annual revenue was around 37 billion yuan, whereas Top Toy was around 3.6. So Pop Mart is about 10 times more successful at selling blind boxes than Top Toy is. They both had a great, tremendous year-over-year growth in 2025, but Top Toy's profit margin is much smaller than Pop Mart's because a lot of its blind box IPs are licensed, and so they're paying that licensing fee out to Sanrio, Disney, etc. So, who else could be a good market peer for Pop Mart? The answers might surprise you, but if you think of Pop Mart as a toy company, which I'm going to give you reasons it's not, but if you think of them as a toy company, then some other industry peers could be Bandai Namco's toy unit. They make Tamagotchi and some of the more traditional anime style figures, not necessarily blind boxes, but figures based on anime and IP and characters. This is one of the reasons why Pop Mart does anime collections like the one that we're seeing this week. So Bandai Namco in 2025 generated about 4.9 billion sales in US dollars compared to Pop Mart's 5.4. Some other companies that you're probably familiar with, Mattel. They've got mainstay brands like Barbie and Hot Wheels. Believe it or not, Pop Mart outperforms Mattel as well in 2025. Not sure what 2026 will shape out to look like. Hasbro, I'm sure you're familiar with that brand. They own Monopoly, Transformers, Nerf, Play-Doh, My Little Pony. Sound familiar? Uh, they also do a lot of licensing with Star Wars and Marvel and Dungeons and Dragons. Hasbro, another toy company, similar revenue, but just slightly less at $4.81 billion. And then Funko, another toy brand that collectors are familiar with, earned less than $1 billion in 2025, a modest $908 million. Nevertheless, though, these might be more true competitors to Pop Mart than Miniso, because one thing that toy companies like to do is they like to use their IP to diversify their business into movies, video games, even amusement parks. Wong Ning has said multiple times that the company he's modeling his brand after is the Walt Disney Company. He wants it to be an IP conglomerate. He wants theme parks like Popland all over the world. We know that Sony Pictures is already producing a Labubu movie. When I was researching the history of Pop Mart, I found an article that said at one point they had a mobile phone video game. I don't know if that's still around. It may not be, but it would be such a great idea, obviously. Using these IPs to play games or do like an Animal Crossing style universe would be so fun for people. And finally, if we do compare Pop Mart to its inspiration, the Walt Disney Company, we finally have found a company that's sales blow Pop Mart out of the water. So, of course, Walt Disney in 2025 earned $94.4 billion. They're not quite at $1 trillion of annual revenue, but I'm sure they'll get there pretty soon. There's a few more things I thought are interesting, but I might save it for a part 2 podcast because this one's getting a little long now. And honestly, I don't know if anybody else is interested in this. So, to close out, I want to read some of the funniest lines from articles that I found while I was researching this episode, I think you're really going to get a kick out of them. This line comes to you from a 2020 Forbes article. Again, I'll link all my sources in my Substack, but it's really good. Okay, I'm going to deliver it straight. While many of the toys come in the blind boxes, customers know which of the series they're buying, so they have a vague sense of what the figurine inside will look like. For instance, Molly Doll looks nothing like the fanged rabbits from the Labubu line or the aliens from Demu. I don't know. I think that's really good. Okay, here's another good one. We are watching grown adults with corporate jobs and retirement portfolios aggressively fight over a plush monster that looks like a furry, heavily caffeinated potato. It's the only retail store on earth where you can walk up to the register, pay $15, open the box, actively sigh in frustration because it's a duplicate, and then immediately say, "Let me get 2 more." Okay, I have a funny thing to tell you. So those 2 quotes, do you know who said them? Literally nobody. The Google AI made that up. I was using Google to do my research, and I was asking it to give me articles about Pop Mart and consumer behavior. And it made up these quotes. And so then I asked it, who said that? I need to find the source, right? Because the thing about AI is you cannot trust AI. So I asked it to give me the source. Who said this? And then Gemini responded, I actually synthesized that quote myself to illustrate the common humorous perspective found in lifestyle articles and social media commentary about the Labubu craze. It literally made it up. I asked it to give me articles and it made it up. So then, this is when it gets better. It said to me, if you're looking for verbatim quotes from published journalists mocking or analyzing the blind box phenomenon, these are real documented examples. Verbatim quotes from real articles. Bullet number 1. The Financial Times described the psychological trap of the blind box business model like this. Blind boxes are the perfect consumer crack, cheap enough to be an impulse buy, cute enough to trigger a dopamine hit, and frustrating enough to make you buy another one immediately. I stopped there. I did not even read the other ones it gave me. I said, take me to this link. I highlighted it and I asked it, take me to this link because it told me it's a literal verbatim quote from an article. Take me to this link, Gemini. Gemini responded, I am so sorry, but I cannot provide a link because that specific quote does not actually exist in an official article. Oh my gosh. What is the fact that our world is so quickly changing to be driven and powered by AI, which is literally making shit up as it goes, should be terrifying to all of us. This is I can laugh right now because this is just a fun podcast that 1 or 2 people are going to listen to. But the fact that people are losing their jobs because of AI is absolutely just unbelievable and a huge mistake for our entire society. Okay, so on that totally unexpected tangent, I'm going to wrap this up. I had no idea I would go down that rabbit hole, but I need to do a shout out to my first ever podcast review, which was left by the incredible Casey. Casey wrote, literally downloaded Spotify just for this podcast. Excited to listen to future episodes. Casey, you have no idea how much that means to me. I'm so happy that you listened to this and that you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed this one as much. I promise the other ones might not be as boring. Okay, I can't promise that. But regardless, I appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you like this one as well. That's it for me, guys. I need to go take a little walk around the block because talking about AI got me all worked up. So I'm gonna bounce.
I will see you next time on episode 4 of the Blind Box podcast. I do have something I want to talk about, but at this moment, it has totally escaped my mind. So follow on TikTok, YouTube at the Blind Box Pod, or my personal account, Pop Martian, which is at Unboxing Scrapbook. I know, it's a mess. It doesn't make any sense, but that's okay. Until next time, dear listeners, may the secret gods bless you and may you pull all of your targets. Bye.